when Nicole told me about umbrales and the idea of thresholds and the idea of these spaces which are crossing points but inhabiting them, inhabiting the intangible, inhabiting the change, inhabiting the dynamic, inhabiting the cybernetic and those feedback loops, that it seemed like a really lovely place to try and start doing some work that was about this kind of productive confusion or productive ambiguity. But the sort of short summary of this project is it's a platform to gather dreams related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have quite a few now, and we're working with a corpus of I think over 2,000 people, and you know, a dream related to COVID doesn't mean necessarily a dream about disease or masking. It could be a dream. Often there were many in the US about insects, for instance, an infestation. It could be a metaphor. Also, you can imagine that people's politics will change their dreams. Some people are having nightmares about social distancing. Some people are having nightmares about intense government intrusion into their daily life. And so the interesting kinds of questions to probe, I think, are what are the changes that you can see at the collective level that an individual can't see is changing within themselves and their dreamscape and their landscape? What are the changes you can only find by getting in touch with the collective? And what do you learn about your waking life by getting in touch with this kind of intangible, immaterial? One of the elements of this data collection is that after you tell us about your dreams and the changes during the COVID-19 pandemic, an image will be algorithmically generated. And so there's this algorithm building up a kind of intelligence around human dreaming and a kind of intelligence around collective human intelligence. One of the beautiful things that our project can do, what it needs to do, it takes in dreams, and then what it needs to do is organize them. You can't really generate images without organizing those dreams. And one of the things you do when you organize them is you see overlaps that you wouldn't have seen before. So for instance, there are lots of people in the United States having dreams about losing their home during COVID, which makes sense. But some of those dreams are dreams about the death of their family, a loss of home. But those, the way the algorithm organized them, are right next to these dreams, which are dreams of tornadoes. Multiple dreams of tornadoes coming and sucking home away and people being left standing on the concrete block where they once lived with their family. And so you see these kinds of material or imagistic, experiential, immersive versions of these emotional environments, and you see them in unexpected ways. I don't think that people would necessarily have a sense that their dreams of tornadoes are dreams about the pandemic. But if you look at things across different groups of folks, you find that these recurring dreams of house loss tend to start when COVID starts. If you find something like that, then you would maybe help give people insight into their own unconscious image processing. Why is it that our minds wander when we're not paying attention? It's a very similar question to why do we dream. But people have faith that that first question about mind wandering is an answerable question, but that the question about dreaming is unanswerable. Dreams really maintain this distance. There's this nice metaphor I like, which I think is from Schopenhauer, which is about porcupines in the cold. It's like you really desperately need to come together with dreams, but they're spiky, and so you get poked and you run away. You're very cold and you need warmth, but you're spiky and you run away. And I think dreams are sort of like that. But I don't think the function is particularly mysterious. I just think it's a lensing question. So if I am asking it from a neuroscientific lens, which is asking kind of always about contributions to measurable changes in waking cognition, because we measure changes in cognition while we're awake, and if we can't measure them, we don't talk about them. And that's sort of how the neurosciences work. So I'll give an answer which is framed in that kind of small world. I think that dreams are a simulation space where you and I are having this conversation, and this conversation matters to me only insofar as it's resonant with something in my past or it's relevant for something in my future. But my past is so vast, and my future is so impossibly vague, that I think the dream is this kind of portal space between the two, where I take this conversation, you remind me of a person who I went to camp with, and that person, I had these feelings about, so in my dream, you and I are at camp, and I project those feelings onto you. I'm making these long-distance connections, and then I'm feeling, physically, emotionally feeling, whether these are resonant. And then also there's this blending temporally of that past into future scenarios. We're not only going to camp together and you're not only switched out for my friend, but also there's a war about the virus, and are you a good or a bad companion during that war, etc. And so I think it's a way to feel the kind of intersection of possibilities from the past with possibilities from the future. And I think that humans, in general, need to feel possibilities in a narrative. I don't think we do well if things don't have some sort of narrative structure. And I think that even an internal dialogue, which seems neutral about pouring water in a cup, actually is really laden with feelings and narrative structure. How would I feel if I poured outside the cup? It would feel bad to clean up, etc. And I think that that kind of pervasiveness of feeling and narrative is happening while we're awake all the time. And if you close your eyes for 15 minutes, it'll start to get stranger and stranger and sleepier, that narrative inside. And I think of that mind wandering to the day really as dreaming while you're awake. I think of it as completely continuous. And I think dreams are just a wandering mind without any need to come back to the present moment. There's no narrowing, there's no physicality, there's no presentness, there's none of that is necessary, and so we get into this extremely wide space, and that space is a space for kind of atemporal, intensely personal exploration. That's kind of how I feel about dreams.